And now the story has come completely full circle back to the beginning again and been tied up in a nice, neat bow, but nobody is seeing it because of context. There is a story that has been lost to time that we're going to cover in this video. I'm sure a lot of you recognize this image. It's from G.I. Jane. What's the story? Well, who remembers back in the 80s and 90s when there was all of this discussion about the expanding role of women in the military? Women had been in the military for quite some time, even since before I was born, but they had very specific roles and very specific rules and made up a very small portion of the force. Well, guess what? Now we have a story out just in the last week that ties up the entire argument made back then very neatly. But when you made the argument back then, you were labeled old school, misogynist, ignorant. We're going to cover this, and it's going to absolutely blow your mind. And as a bonus, I'm going to tell a personal story about men and women in the military. I'm sure a lot of you remember this scene from Starship Troopers. What if I told you there was a scenario where men and women in the military decided of their own volition, against SOP, to share facilities because it was more convenient and it made life easier? I'm sure you're going to want to hear that story as well. Stick around. But real quick, I never want to forget to be diligent. I always want to be disciplined. Say thank you to every single one of you who has showed up over the Florida Monkey Patreon channel. You are making an enormous difference in my life, more so than I can really express. And humbly, I thank you. For only $1 US per month, you can join our channel over there. The videos are very different. Ask anyone in the comment section. Some folks have said sometimes you take the gloves off a little bit too much, Monkey. You need to put them back on a little bit. Well, that's what we have Vimeo for. We can put the videos over on their server so that we don't have Google's censoring prying eyes, protecting us, giant air quotes there. There's a $1 level, there's a $5 level. It's totally up to you, whatever you can afford, whatever you can afford for however long, whether it's 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, it doesn't matter. I appreciate all of it. God bless every one of you for doing it. Thank you so much. Now, let's get to this. Let's get right down to the meat of the argument. This is 18 July 2023. Female military recruit, U.S. Army, forced to shower with two quote-unquote trans-identifying men. Considered resigning, senator says, quote, if she raised her hand, she feared she'd be targeted for retaliation. Now let's ask ourselves a question real quick. What if the men weren't trans-identifying? What if it was just two good old boys? What if there was a situation where they were short on facilities and everybody just had to kind of just tough it out and deal with it and just go in and get scrubby-dubbied and get done? And get out and get in uniform and get on with duty? What if they weren't trans-identifying and you were put in that position? You see what they did here? What they did here is they took a story that was wildly inappropriate about minors in schools, high school, junior high, elementary school, whatever, being forced to share facilities as minors, or public places where you would have a mixture of whatever. And they shifted the battlefield to the United States military, which is an entirely different place. Number one, at least for now, you are there of your own volition. Number two, you're all adults. Everybody is there for the same reason. And believe me, in a training battalion where she was, this particular individual, you rarely have enough time to spend in a shower to be able to notice the assigned chromosomes, let's just put it that way, of the person next to you. Most times in the military in the morning, the place was so steamy and I was so bleary-eyed that there could have been women in there. Maybe there was, maybe there wasn't. I was there to get in, get out, and get on with duty. Would not have known. A military recruit who was allegedly forced to shower with and in the next bunk there was sleeping two trans-identifying men in separate bunks in an open bay, considered resigning after the situation caused her significant distress, according to a Republican senator. Senator Mike Rounds, South Dakota, congressional hearing, alerted of the situation by the Attorney General, blah, 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 sleeping in open bays, showering with biological males who had not had the reassignment surgery. Really? Now, let's think about this title of this video from Megyn Kelly in the terms of women in the military. Her title, Why Allowing the Opposite Sex into Single-Sex Spaces is More Dangerous Than All Gender Spaces. See, here she's talking about allowing men who think they're women into women's-only spaces. Well, there was an argument made, and they were called misogynists. Got men who made this, like, these women want to pretend they're men, and they want to invade male-only spaces, i.e. the combat side of the military. How dare you say they think they're men? They want to act like men. They want to do everything. I can do everything a man can do. Wasn't that everything they said? Wasn't what this whole movie was about? Shaved her head, got in shape, got all muscled up. I can do everything a man can do. I can do everything a man can do. Acting like men. I mean, other than literally doing the biological part of it, which is what supposedly bothered this particular soldier so badly, was that the biological part hadn't happened yet. And that's the big complaint. What about here? Every other aspect being true, that this is a female, no biological changes whatsoever, but in every other way, acting like a male. And that was seen as, what was the terms we used yesterday? Brave, stunning, progressive, forward-thinking. You see this? This is a trial basic training for the Marines, where they've got men and women in the same units. I'm sure that's not going to be a problem, where they train together. And you're supposed to, at this age, with everything else that you're supposed to be overcoming at that age, overcome as a male. I probably shouldn't say it, but pheromones are pheromones. You go out there and you get two young individuals, one male, one female, getting sweaty, rolling around in the mud. Things are going to happen. That's just the way it is. See, the Israeli IDF has female units, combat units, but they're separate from the male units. They're entirely different. It's not about women in combat. It's about women and men, especially young ones, very young ones, in high-stress situations, loaded up on hormones and pheromones. Now, story from my own personal time in the military. This was a very limited amount of time that I was stationed here. This is the Presidio of Monterey, California. I've zoomed in here on Google Earth to show you the particular building. Now, why are we looking at a building, Mucky? What's this going to show us? Well, I have to explain the logistical challenge to show why males and females got together and said, look, we're just going to have to share facilities. For us to be able to get done what we have to get done in the amount of time they're giving us, we're going to have to, for a short time, in certain situations, we are going to have to share facilities. Now, what you're looking at, you see a building in the back here. There's a smaller building here, building in front. Building in front was Bravo Company, building in back was Alpha Company. This smaller building over here was a chow hall. Okay, so you had two companies attached by a chow hall building. Now, I'm going to bring up the same two buildings here with some pictures. In the morning, 0500, just like in the rest of the military, everybody had to get up and go PT formation. Let's go back. Let me zoom out here. Here's where your barracks were. See way in the back here, see this track up here? This green area? That's where you had to go. You had to walk up there. You had to leave the barracks, be up there, be in formation, ready to go PT 0500 in the morning. About 45 minutes for PT. 0700, you had to be back up here in dress uniform for accountability formation. So hour and 15 minutes to get back down to here, get your particular barracks area all squared away, get in uniform, get showered, get shaved, the whole bit, eat, and then also get the common facilities cleaned. The bathrooms, the stalls, the shower rooms. Now, where did the challenge come in? The challenge came in, let's see if I can bring my picture back up here. PT, this first floor, the bottom half of it on the right was all cadre offices. The bottom half on the left was all prior service. They had their own little bathroom, no big deal. The second floor, over here on the left where I'm showing with the cursor, this half of it was female. This half of it was male. This area in the center, this was the area where all of the facilities were. The top floor was all male. No challenges up there. This building was built back in the 60s, and there was only one set of facilities that they had to basically just double on the second floor because they had to separate facilities. They need to have, but they were right next to each other. There was just one thin wall that separated the female facilities from the male facilities. Here was the problem. The problem was, since there were two sets of facilities, it took twice as long to clean as the top facility. Why? One set of facilities for the whole floor guys. And down here, it was only half a floor. And these were all prior service. They didn't have to really worry about accountability formations and PT formations. They just weren't part of it. So there was this huge challenge to get everybody in and out. We're talking over 100. In and out, showered, shit shaved, ready to go, and give everybody enough time to get ready. So the senior male soldier on the floor, the senior female soldier on the floor, had to get together and coordinate who did what, when, and where. And the only solution, the only best solution that we came up with is that the two sets of facilities were identical. We had to shut one of them down early and get it cleaned and get it ready for inspection. And whoever hadn't showered or whatever had to use the other one, and it didn't matter whether they were male or female. And it was just the case. Now, we did everything we could to get the females through as fast as we could, because we knew they had a much bigger challenge than we did. But to be able to go eat and clean everything, and for them to get ready, and then once again, like I said, had to walk. Remember, in dress uniform, and for that time, that was those pump things that girls had. They weren't pumps, but they weren't high heels. They were whatever the in between was. The dress shoes. They had to walk this path up here, back up to this track. Some of them, it would take a little longer. Would walk the sidewalk down here to the road, then come around this way. But it was a lot longer, so less time. So believe me, it was for an hour and 15 minutes. Sounds like a long time for that many people to get put through all the facilities and eat and get in dress. It was a major logistical challenge. Now, it was wildly against SOP to do that. So we had to be very careful with what we were doing, make sure there were no NCOs on the floor that could see what was happening. But there were people sharing facilities back then. It was just a logistical hiccup at that time. There was no other way to overcome. And to my mind, at least to my memory, there was never any issue with anybody harassing anybody else. Ever. Because too many people, you were in too big of a hurry. You didn't care. You just had too much stuff on your mind. You had your studies on your mind. You had everything else in the military you got to do. And believe it or not, this is where I was stationed when the Loma Prieta earthquake hit. In fact, you see this little patch of cars right here? When I was here, this was not a parking lot. There was no parking lot here. There was a cement walkway here. Things have changed quite a bit. But I was standing about right here where this parking lot was when the Loma Prieta earthquake hit back in '89. And believe me, that's a whole nother video for a whole nother day. So I wanted to share this because this idea of men and women in the military and facilities and who uses what, honest to God, it's not nearly as big a deal as it's been made out to be with the media. Because even back then, it was the case. I remember one time, one guy got caught staring at one girl, and she just flipped him the bird, basically, and walked away, and it was actually more embarrassing for him than anything else. It was just funny. But everybody forgot about it because, you also had varying ranks, too. I mean, there were some girls, this was early in, so this was, E3, E2, E1 era, but there were some E4s floating around. So you didn't want to be caught not having your military bearing where it should be. There was something called esprit de corps back then. Now, like I said, long time ago in the military. I'm sure so many things have changed back then, but wasn't this the issue that back then women wanted to do everything men could do while keeping their physical womanness? They wanted to do everything men could do. And now what do we have? Well, we have men who want to keep everything that their manness, but they want to do everything women can do. Wear the dresses, wear the makeup, all that ridiculousness. It just seems to me that the military, is a good place to talk about this because this is where we said, and I'll reiterate this, allowing the opposite sex into single-sex spaces is more dangerous than all gender spaces. Now, she's saying it in one context, but it works in both. It works in both, and she doesn't even see it. I even commented on this video. I didn't get any response to it, but, it's Megan Kelly. She's got 1.36 million subscribers. Who the hell am I? So, anyway, I just wanted to cover that. So, thank you, everyone who joined us at Patreon. Very, very much appreciate it. Those of you who haven't, guys, I sure could use you. I really could. It would make a giant difference. $1 per month. And like I said, if you go over there, there's 280 videos that you would be ready to get for $1. More content than you could probably watch in 3 months, to be truthful. And if it wasn't for you, no risk. So, would love to have you over there. God bless. Have a wonderful week. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.